What good is it to plant a seed if you don't ever water it? What good is it to have a voice if you don't ever use it? What good is it to have all of these experiences if you don't ever tell the stories?
Hi everyone, welcome to the Take Back Your Biz interview series where I'm chatting with industry influencers on how they have found more joy, freedom, and growth in their business by taking back what matters to them. I'm your host, Lauren Black, creative strategist and owner of Bosscation, a business retreat in a box to help entrepreneurs escape from your daily grind to strategically plan for your business. If you want to catch all of the influencer interviews, head on over to bosscation.com/takebackyourbiz. And that's also where you can find details on our free challenge to help you take back your business, as well as our awesome giveaway with tons of amazing prizes. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Elle Jones. So Elle and I met online in a Facebook group a while back, and she just has a heart of gold and is always styling. It's such a fashionista. So Elle is a personal brand strategist, a creative director, producer, filmmaker, former actress, and the founder and CEO of what you may know her in our online space of ELLEvate now. So she helps creative entrepreneurs and influencers, leaders, creatives to elevate their brand and their business through her storytelling, marketing, and video. So Elle has just an amazing background and resume. I mean, it just blows you away, all that she has done and accomplished. So today, let's hear about how we can take back our unique voice. So Elle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Lauren. Hello, Bosscation community. It's truly an honor and a privilege to be here. As Lauren said, we met in the online space, and I'm eternally grateful for just her kindness and her friendship and her support. She truly is an amazing gem, and so it is just a pleasure to be here with you today to be able to share. And I hope that your viewers will walk away with something that they can implement right away to be able to help them to really own their power, find their authentic voice, and use it, right?
Yes, that's there's no point unless you take action. So
Absolutely.
Yep. So tell us, how can we take back our unique voice?
Well, although that's the title, I really feel like your voice was never lost. Like it's somewhere in there. But like you said, the key word is taking it back. And the first thing that you need to do is just really recognize that you have a voice and what you have to say is powerful. It's impactful. And most importantly, it has the power to shift and cause transformation in not only your life, but the lives of those around you and the people that you've been called to serve, whether that's through your business, your product, services, whatever area that you're in this journey, your voice matters. And it's so important and necessary for people, particularly women, because traditionally throughout history, we've been taught that we have a place, right? We should be seen and not heard. And we've seen that in so many different industries all throughout. I was just actually doing some market research earlier this morning, and I came across a video clip of an actress in Hollywood, and she talked about the disparity of pay for women actors versus male actors and their male counterparts in the industry. And that has been a very well documented ongoing issue for ages. And what she talked about, or what she was talking about, was just how for so long as women, we've just been taught if you say something, then you're the B word, right? Or, if you're too aggressive or you're too loud or you're too bold. And I call flag on the play on that mess because we all have a voice and we have it for a reason. And so it's just really about learning how to cultivate that voice, to nurture it, and to use it for the things that really matter to you.
Yeah, I love that because we just need to bring it out of us. It was never lost. It just, we need to, figure out exactly what our voice is.
Absolutely.
So how have you kind of taken this back in your own business? Is there a story behind it?
Yes, there is. And the story actually starts way back in the 70s, but I will spare you the long version. I am the woman who was that child who was very opinionated, always had a lot to say, but I was really shy. It was just in certain environments that I was okay or felt comfortable expressing, whatever my opinion was or my point of view, even at like, I think 4 years old. I remember my mom telling me a story of when I was very young, and I had a great aunt. She was my great grandmother's, one of my great grandmother's sisters, and they were born in a time where they were sharecroppers, and they, or not sharecroppers, but they were on the farm, and having to do certain things. And so she was a really dark skinned woman, and I was learning my colors. So I probably was a little younger than 4, to be honest, but I was learning my colors, and it was like the very basics. And I was like, oh, white, blue, black, red. And so my mother had this purse, and then she had bought me one much like it around Easter. And we were visiting my great aunt at her home. She lived in a senior citizen building at the time. And I said, Mommy, look, Aunt Alberta is just as black like my purse. And they were mortified. My mother was mortified. My great aunt was just ready probably to strangle me. and and at that point, I think I realized that I had a voice. So I would just say whatever. And I can remember growing up and being told, be quiet, shut your mouth. Your mouth is going to get you in trouble. And so I grew up with that voice back here subliminally telling me, whenever I found myself in situations, whether it was in high school or in college or even in dating, and knowing that I was in a relationship where there were things happening that I knew should not be happening, I was afraid to use my voice, because in the back of my mind, I could hear those voices of, shut your mouth, be quiet, your mouth's going to get you in trouble. So growing up during that time, I'm a 70s baby. It just was not the thing. It was just not the thing to nurture or tell your child, especially a female child, like, this is okay. It's okay for you to have opinions. It's okay for you to express yourself. It was more of a do as I say and not as I do, and don't question me type of mentality that I was raised in. And that, I carried that with me for so many years, well into my 30s, to be honest. So although I did gradually start to use my voice more and speak up for myself, there were a lot of times that I didn't, and the end result was me being in situations, allowing myself to be in situations that were just not comfortable. They were not good for me. And so when I started my business, this part of my business, I've always been in marketing and advertising, and I've had a consulting business in the past, but this business model and what I'm doing now, I launched it in 2012. Actually, next Thursday will be my 5-year biz anniversary. But the idea for my business was birthed on my deathbed. I am a 17 plus year lupus survivor. And back in 2011, at the height of my acting career, I fell very ill and ended up in ICU on my deathbed. And basically the doctors were saying that there was nothing else that they could do, and having my family to prepare for the worst. And I could remember laying there and saying, and I'm a faith-filled woman. I could remember laying there and just praying and asking God, like, why, after all that I've been through, would you allow me to be in this place? And we had our own little conversation, because he and I talk. And I could remember, he shared some things with me. I got a great revelation. But of that, I remember saying, if you allow me to live, if I can survive this, I promise that I will use everything that I have, everything that I know, and everything that I'm good at to be able to help elevate the lives of other people, more specifically women. And part of my everything was my voice. And so when I first started in the industry and being in acting, when I moved from Ohio to Hollywood, I just took what I could get, because I was a new actor in the, in the industry, at least in Hollywood. And I wanted to work. I wanted to be on projects. And then gradually I started speaking up for what I felt was right. I started speaking up for what I wanted, and that translated over into my business ultimately. And so that's the shorter version of how I was able to take my voice back and be able to use it even in my business.
That is such an incredible story of just the power that you found within you and the power of God and his healing. Yeah. But, and just being able to step into who you kind of knew was there all along.
Yeah.
And finally, you gave yourself the permission
yes.
to move forward with that voice.
Absolutely.
So what does that look like in your business as far as finding your voice and, using it for, you said, for good and to elevate others?
For me, what it looks like, and this is what I even encourage my clients, it's to be bold, be brave, and be humble. And the reason why I say that is because you have to, especially in this online space. So for those of you who are watching, probably the majority of you maybe perhaps are existing business owners, small business owners, I don't, probably range the gamut of professions. And so you know what it's like to be able to do business in the online space. And you also know what it's like in the online space, and that it being what feels like overly saturated, right? And so how do you show up? How does your tribe, how does your community, how does your ideal client or dream client find you in the midst of all, in the sea of all of these people who virtually are saying and doing the same thing in some way or another? How do they find you? It's how you show up, not just aesthetically, like visually how you show up, but what are you saying when you show up? And so there's a level of bravery and boldness that's required if you're ever going to have a successful foundation there's a level that you have to utilize if you're ever going to have a successful brand and business. And so for me, because I focus on personal branding more specifically, it's dealing with the person. It's dealing with their stories. It's dealing with them learning how, like you said, Lauren, the power that they have in their voice. Their voice is powerful, and it's really tapping into that, tapping into your stories, and boldly and bravely sharing them. Later, in time out for all of the shame. We see it all over the place, time and time again. People are being shamed for being themselves and sharing their truths. And, I want to encourage women, and this is a mission of mine, and I do it, it's evident throughout my work, is that you can't care what anyone else has to say about you. It's your journey, it's your vision, it's your business. As long as you are being humble and showing up and serving your community, that's what matters the most.
I love that. And I think when we do that, we end up connecting with the right people.
Yes.
Because so often we're afraid of looking or sounding different. And so we try to blend in. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, blending in, as you said, people, when you're on social media, how are they supposed to know what you have to offer and what your secret sauce is or what makes you different if you do blend in? So it is risky. It's scary because it does leave some people turning away from you, or you might have people commenting. I saw a business friend of mine that ran an ad campaign and had people posting really nasty stuff about her on her ads. And
it's like, what are we, in high school? I don't understand.
I don't either.
Insanely crazy to me when I witness that. And I've been, a victim. I don't even want to say victim. I've experienced it as well. And it just goes back to, I think of the mean girl in high school. I think of, the girls who decide to bully, or they have these cliques and then they decide to pick on the less popular people, or the people that they don't feel have a voice and they can kind of just run over them. It's that same type of scenario that I see play out in the online space sometimes. And really all it is they're afraid. It's something about you that makes them feel insecure. And so rather than giving them so much power in responding, what do we need to do? It's what we're talking about today. And that's taking back your unique voice and using it. Never let anyone else tell your story. You be your biggest PR person, right? And so when you have the ability to direct the conversation, not control it, but when you're showing up and when you're consistent and you're speaking and you're sharing your stories and you're connecting, like you said, and building relationships, the chances of someone being able to come in and say nasty things, anybody can say anything nasty on your ads or your posts or whatever. But what ends up happening is when you're consistent, when you're bold, when you're brave, when you're humble and building those authentic relationships, I know that word gets abused a lot, but it's very true, then it doesn't matter what those people say because your real people know you. And so they ignore it. They totally ignore it and they move on. And it lessens the bite and the impact of what I don't want to call them your enemy, but we'll use them for this. We'll use them for this example. It lessens the bite and the impact of what your enemy set out to do towards you. And it really is just all about insecurities. And so if we spent more time building one another up, really checking in and saying, how are you? How can I help you? And without motive, there's a lot of healing that has to take place when you think about sharing your story, when you think about using your voice, especially if you've ever been through anything, right? And probably the majority of us have at some point or another.
Now, how would you suggest that people take their story? Maybe they have been through something, but it's not related to their business at all. Or maybe there are people that feel like they've never really gone through anything that's super significant. So how do we craft our story according to what's going on in our life? And, how do we relate that? How much is too much sharing and, not enough? Sorry, that's like a lot of questions at once. But.
No, it's okay. If I need to come back, I'll say, okay, what was the question? Yeah. No. So in short, I will say this. I've had people say to me, I don't have a hero's story. Well, no one said that you had to have a hero story, but you absolutely have a story. If you live beyond a day old, you have a story to tell. And it may not be anything significant to you, but we don't understand the power that our stories hold. And so until we begin to share them and tell them. So I have a story, tons of stories because I have lived, but I have a story about my son who was born 2 months premature, and he's actually what we call our miracle child because although I had 2 other children, I was diagnosed with secondary infertility, and so my husband and I had a really hard time conceiving. And so I share parts of that story, but the more important part is I remember I think my son was probably about 5 years old, and I was homeschooling him at the time. And we knew that he had started showing signs of delay. And so I had taken him to his pediatrician, and she referred us to a pediatric neurologist here in our area, took him to the pediatric neurologist, and the pediatric neurologist tested him, just did a quick assessment, basically asking him a series of questions, all of which he answered correctly. And I don't know exactly what he was looking for, but this was a highly regarded expert in his industry. And the end result, at the end of that appointment, that doctor looked me in the eye and he said, your son is he diagnosed him with PDD, which is pervasive development disorder. And so in layman's terms, he said, your son is severely mentally retarded. He will be non-sociable and non-educable, and you need to apply for Social Security for him.
Whoa.
I was devastated, to say the least. I was bawling, crying. My husband actually was out of town, so this was an appointment I had to do on my own, and I just was completely lost. Like I didn't even know what to do. Thankfully, although I was homeschooling my son at the time, he was part of a charter school system, and so he had an assigned speech therapist who was on the phone with me, and thankfully she was there and saying, just calm down, don't listen to him. This is what we need to do. I know that what he's saying is not true. And so I liken that, and I share that story quite, an abbreviated version of it when I'm posting or talking, but I share that because how many times do we venture out to do something in our business? And we have those experts that we're looking to for help, and they basically shoot to crap our stuff, right? It sucks. You need a funnel. You need this. You need that. You're never going to be able to do this. You're never going to be able to do that. And if we buy into those things, what do? We completely abort the vision or the idea or the new service or new product that we have in mind that could potentially really serve our community and change the course of our business and our lives, right? Yeah. And this also speaks to why it's so important to find your tribe and have that community of people who will lift you up when you're feeling down, when you have doubt and all of these other things. But the greater lesson in this story is, despite what that expert said about my son gets straight A's and B's. He's on the associated student body. He's now 11 years old. He's a black belt in Taekwondo. And he's a leader and one of the most popular kids at his school, according to his teachers and administrators. So if I would have bought into what that expert, that pediatric neurologist said, and just went ahead and applied for Social Security and started treating my baby, in a way based on what this expert told me to do, we probably would not have the child that we have today. And it's the same with your business. It's okay to seek expert help, but you've got to be confident in what you're doing and know what resonates with you and what doesn't. And what doesn't, you need to throw it out. And you need to have that supportive community that's going to push you to go beyond your fears, your level of discomfort, because your baby, your business, your products, your services are waiting for you to nurture them so that they can become something great.
I totally agree. And I think for me, you said to find your tribe. I had a mastermind group that I actually had led it, and it was a free group of people who were, similar in business to me. And that's when I came up with the Bosscation idea in the middle of, meeting with this group, and without their support, because they knew me really well by the time we were, developing this, and they knew my business well, that every time that I'd hear an expert, because I met with this big business consultant who said, ditch the physical piece and just put it online and to have it be an online course. And for me, that just didn't sit well. The whole point was to be able to get away from the computer, to physically work things out and write in your creative mindset. And so I kept having to go back to my mastermind group and saying, oh, well, this person said this, what do you think? And they were my kind of anchor and grounding me on, no, you were very set on this direction. And they really, my business and Bosscation would not be the same without those people to cheer me on, to keep me on track. And so it's important to find the tribe that help you keep your voice and help you stay on track. Absolutely. And it builds up your confidence. Kate Crocco and I were just talking about, she's a confidence and mindset coach. So, when you start taking on projects that aren't a good fit for your business, or if you start just trying to copy other people, then it does take away from your confidence, because you start questioning yourself and saying, oh, well, maybe I am supposed to do it like everyone else and put this as an online course. And then when it's not successful, then you feel down on yourself when it just wasn't your path in the first place.
Totally. And you hit the nail on the head. It's like, what's here. Our business is a passion, right? We do what we do because we're passionate about it. We believe in it. And so there has to be that emotional connection to it to an extent. And you can't allow someone else the authority to come in and totally dismantle that to the point where you completely abandon it. So thankfully you didn't listen to that expert, because we wouldn't have the honor and the pleasure of experiencing Bosscation, which is a resource that so many women in business need. Like, running a business, especially online, if you don't have like a physical presence, it can be a very lonely journey at times. And so, and then like you said, we just get caught on our devices. We're always head down, and we're always on the computer. And so having a resource where we can actually step away from that and be able to do good old fashioned writing and thinking and brainstorming and journaling, it just is an incredible experience. I wanted to go back because I know that you had asked about how do you help people, or how do people who feel like they don't have a story tap into the power of storytelling for their business. And so I'd like to challenge those people to think about it from this perspective. Think about going on a movie date, a dinner date, a smoothie date, a coffee chat. We have endless opportunities here online to connect with each other on Zoom, other video conference platforms, live streams. When you get with your girlfriends, when you get with your besties, your people, your tribe, what are those things that you're sharing with them that have absolutely nothing to do with your business? It's a story in there, right? So the key is really just identifying. It could be something so simple. It doesn't have to be a hero story. It could be, I went on vacation to this place and I remember going into this quaint little boutique and found this dress, and whatever your experience was, there's always an opportunity to find the connection between your experience and your business. And that's where the story comes in. Does that make sense?
Yeah. There's always ways to kind of connect things, and giving metaphors is a great way to build up, what you're trying to say, and
Absolutely.
to, get your message across.
I like to think of storytelling, especially as it pertains to your business and your personal brand, as edutainment. It's nothing more and it's nothing less. It's really about educating your audience, using the power of storytelling, and entertaining them at the same time. I think Ellen DeGeneres does an amazing job of it.
Mm-hmm.
She's not always talking about her or her personal experiences. Sometimes the story can be about someone else. I think about Chantel Adams and her story. Her big message is surrounded around her relationship with her best friend, who is no longer living, and her best friend's journey. I believe she had cancer and she succumbed to, complications from cancer. But Chantel talks about the impact of her friend's journey with this horrible illness and what it did for her. And so again, it's not necessarily a hero story, and it's not necessarily Chantel's direct story, but it's a story about someone that she cares about and the impact that that story had on her and how she's used it as the foundation for her business.
Yeah, I definitely, I love that, how it, just direct, you just pull it in and you make it relevant. That's what you have to do. You make it relevant.
Absolutely.
So going towards more of just a general business and less of the unique voice. So what do you do to plan ahead in your business?
So I think I shared this in my pre-interview. That is an area that I am still honestly growing in. I believe in being completely transparent. I am a short-term planner. And what I mean by that is I will say, okay, I want to do X, and this is what it's going to take to get X done. I'm more of a visionary. I just recently, ironically, just took the 16 personalities test, and I sent it to my girlfriends. And so we're all taking this test together, and then we'll share our results. And it was so eerie how on point the results were for each of us. But it was so funny as I'm sharing my results with my girlfriends, and they're like, yeah, that's you. Oh my gosh, that's totally you. And one of the things was that I'm not the most focused person. So when it comes to planning, and I'm not the planner, I am the visionary. I'm the big visionary behind everything, and then understanding that I need to, in order to succeed, I have to have a team of people, whether it's one or two people or a large team, depending on the project. I need to have people around me who are great at executing. And so I think that it's super important to understand what your strengths and your weaknesses are, or I don't want to call them weaknesses. Understand what your strengths and your areas for growth opportunity are. And when you can be honest with yourself and identify those and own them, then I think you become a better business owner or mother or wife or whatever your role is that you're functioning in when you understand what you're great at and can do really well, and what you're not great at and need support with. So for me, I depend on other people to kind of help me with the planning. So I'll say, here's the vision. This is what I want to do. I don't just throw it out there and say, figure it out. But when it comes to planning, I mean, even with like my day-to-day, my calendar on my phone, my calendar app saves my life daily. And that's about as much planning as I do. I'm still growing in that area, so don't hold it against me.
Well, here's the thing that I picked up from this is that while you say that it's almost not a weakness, but an area of growth for you and that you're working on it, the thing is you've actually detected exactly what your strategy is, and that's to hire it out. So I think, for other people, just take what you can take from this. Your action step for today is if there is an area of growth for you, you don't have to improve on it yourself. If you don't want to, if you can find someone else to kind of pick up where you left off, then that's a perfectly fine solution.
And here's the thing, I think about it this way. I've spent way more time than I care to admit. So probably the first 4 years of my business trying to do stuff that I knew that I couldn't do. And it cost me big. It cost me big. Only here recently, like this year, where I've given myself that permission to say, okay, this is what you really want to do. This is what you're really great at. Focus on that. Everything else, give it to someone. Ask for help. Even if you're in a situation where maybe you are new in business or you're not turning a profit and you don't have the ability to hire out. One, I always say that there's a way. Sometimes we have to look at what we're spending money on and what's really necessary and what's not. And I had to do that. Like I let go of a stock photography subscription that I had, and it was great. But at the end of the day, it was kind of like 90% of the images don't even match my brand. So why am I paying for this subscription for the sake of having it, or, out of fear, like, what if I don't have time to create my own images? This is just an easy pull. But the problem is that the story that I was telling visually didn't match. And so I reallocated those funds to something else to be able to pay someone to take over a different part of my business. Sometimes it's just a matter of reaching out and saying, hey, I need help. I'm looking for someone to partner with or collaborate. Think of what you can offer in exchange for help. And so there's so many different ways to be able to get what you need. But the key thing is just being honest with yourself and stop running yourself in the ground and your business, trying to do things that you were never meant to do in your business.
For sure. I was the same way, where I started off in my business trying to do everything myself, even when things I'm not as good at or not as efficient. And
Right.
It's true that you can find a way. And I did end up doing an exchange of services at one point. I couldn't handle all of my social media. And so I had a social media manager and exchanged branding design with her. And so that it's an even exchange of energy. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think that's what's important. And we
important.
didn't even have a contract, which is horrible. And I'm not suggesting that for people, but it was such a natural, easy fit for both of us that it was just kind of like, both doing each other these favors and building each other's businesses up. And, it allows you to get portfolio work from this new client while also getting something that you're not as good at, not as fast at, and letting an expert handle what they do best.
Absolutely. And you said the key thing, it's a transference of energy. And so when you don't have that, that's where people tend to go wrong.
Yep. So if you could offer one piece of advice for people, and you can pick which topic you want to give advice to, either taking back your voice, taking back your business, or taking back your life, what piece of advice would you give?
It's just really simple. It is giving yourself permission to own who you are and being unapologetically bold and brave about it. Like all of our lives, people have told us what we should be, how we should talk, how we should carry ourselves. Some have even experienced, family members telling you what you should study when you go to college. Most of us can probably relate to at some time or another going into business for ourselves and having at least one friend or family member saying, are you still working on that business? You haven't gone and gotten a real job yet. It really is shutting the noise in a loving way. Sometimes you have to distance yourself, but it really is just being confident in who you are. And when you're confident in who you are, when you're confident in the work that you know you've been called to do, those things don't sting as much. And it really makes it so much easier to step into your spotlight, leap into your spotlight and own it with confidence. Because here's the thing, and I say this all the time, especially about storytelling. We have a series of stories that make up our life. So when we get to the end of our lives, and most of us will probably have these big ceremonies or, some type of celebratory event that happens at the end of our lives where our family and friends and coworkers and people that know and love us come together and they share these incredible stories about what type of people we were when we were here on earth, right? You have a series of stories and you get to tell them the way that you want to. And in order to do that, you have to understand the power of your voice. But here's the key thing that you've got to remember as well. Your stories are about you, but they're not for you. And so we can't be selfish and harbor those things and hide them and be very incredibly stingy with them, because what happens is it doesn't serve anyone. What good is it to plant a seed if you don't water it?
You have had so many quotables in there that I want to just print out and put on my wall. Your story's about you, but it's not for you. And that I seriously, I'm going to rewatch this and go print some out. Put them up there in my bulletin board.
Put them up. Send them to me too. Sometimes I forget them. I'm like, these over here. But that really is it. It's just, what good is it to plant a seed if you don't ever water it? What good is it to have a voice if you don't ever use it? What good is it to have all of these experiences if you don't ever tell the stories?
Yep. So I'm going to just end it on that because it doesn't get any better. So mic drop. So thank you so much for sharing. This was really impactful. So I would love for you to share where we can find you.
Yes. I am ELLEvate now all across social media. I'm also Elle Jones Productions on Instagram, but honestly, I've just not ramped up my presence on there. I know that's a faux pas for somebody who pushes personal branding. But ELLEvate now, and it's ELLEVATE now. I can be found at ELLEvatenow.com. That's my website. ELLEvate Now on Facebook, Instagram, and ENTV with Elle on YouTube. Or you can just go to ELLEvatenowTV.com.
Perfect. Thank you. And for those who are listening, if you found this helpful, first of all, give her a thumbs up. But also, you could have the chance to win a 60-minute brand story strategy session valued at almost $700 with Elle if you join the Take Back Your Biz challenge. So make sure you go join that. It's bosscation.com/takebackyourbiz, where you can also find all the other influencer interviews from this series. So thank you very much. We hope that everyone found this amazingly impactful, that you can go take back your voice.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.